Hey guys, it's Tuesday and I'm 15 minutes late, but we had a hearing across the street that ran long. Uh, so we were talking about that. Originally, what I was going to do today was have either Thomas or Jessica on with me, and what we were going to do is talk about either a trial we've had or, a case, something interesting. But because of this hearing, we had to change the format for today. And so I don't have a set format. So one thing that I thought would be kind of cool is to talk about the top 5 crimes in Texas. And if you Google that, you will find out that the top 5 crimes in Texas are drugs is number 1, not a shocker. I think that would have been, I wouldn't have had to Google to find that out. Number 2 is theft. Number 3 is aggravated assault. Number 4 is burglary. And number 5 is robbery. According to Google, these are the top 5 crimes in Texas. And that's pretty much true in my office as well, although I thought surely in those top 5 would be assault of a family member, but it didn't make the cut. So let's talk a little bit about each one. Number 1, drugs. I've talked so much about drug cases that I don't know that there's much new I can say. You have drugs classified in different penalty groups, and depending upon what penalty group they're in and the drug quantity would depend upon the level of the charge, be it a felony or a misdemeanor. We do see misdemeanor drug cases usually involving pills. As I've said before, any of the penalty group 1 drugs, the hard stuff, cocaine, methamphetamines, heroin, none of those can be charged as a misdemeanor. Those are always charged as a felony. There are times in less than a gram cases that we are able to get those cases reduced to possession of drug paraphernalia, which is a misdemeanor, and work cases out that way. So, again, no shocker that drugs are the number 1 crime in Texas. We get drug case calls weekly, every week, for potential new cases. So the number 2 is theft, and we do see a lot of theft cases come through the office. A lot of the theft cases are misdemeanor shoplifting cases. People trying to steal from Walmart and whatnot. We don't get a whole lot of those. We don't get a whole lot of simple misdemeanors in this office. We deal with more serious issues. And theft, sort of like, hey Shane, I see you on the comments. Theft, sort of like drugs, the penalty range increases for the dollar amount of the theft. Recently here in the paper, there was a woman charged, I guess it was last week, with alleging to have stolen like $180,000 from the company that she worked for. And so that's a theft. And obviously with $180,000, she's looking at a felony theft charge. I don't know anything about her case. I just bring it up because it was in the paper. And because it's apparently one of the number 2 of top 5 crimes in Texas. Number 3 is aggravated assault, which is generally a second-degree felony carrying a range of 2 minimum of 2 years, maximum of 20, and a fine not to exceed $10,000. The aggravated assault can basically be charged two ways. One is because of the injuries, and the simplest way to think about that is if the injuries caused a person to lose, even just for a period of time, the function of a body part. That's an injury that can be considered aggravated. So, damage to the eye, you can't see, broken arm, something that causes you to not be able to use a body function as an injury would classify for an aggravated assault. The second way to commit aggravated assault is to use or exhibit a deadly weapon during the initial assault. So, that's where you get the, don't bring a knife to a fist fight, and there won't be an aggravated charge. It'll be a misdemeanor assault. The fourth, which again doesn't surprise me very much, is burglary. Mainly the two ways we see burglary, especially in this office, is burglary of a habitation, burglary of a building. The distinction being that the habitation means the structure is built for someone to occupy as a home. It doesn't have to be occupied at the time. In other words, you can commit the offense in a house that is empty or in a house that no one's living in if you enter without permission and with the intent to commit a theft or some other felony. So if someone wants to break into a vacant house to steal appliances or whatever you can think of, that's still going to be burglary of a habitation. Burglary of a building is different. That would be like the most that we see it is like someone's storage shed not attached to the property, or a business that is clearly not meant to be a habitation or serve as a habitation. Then the next way that we see burglary a lot is burglary of a motor vehicle, which is, if you listen to social media, it's a big problem in Galveston. And I'm not sure if that's true. I've never dug down on the statistics to know if we have a bigger problem than anywhere else, or because our island is smaller, it just gets bounced around on social media more. I don't know. But there are a lot of burglary of motor vehicle cases that we see out of this office. And, that is what it sounds like. Someone breaks into someone's vehicle and steals usually something visible, a purse, a backpack. That's why the best thing that you can do with that respect is not leave things visible in your automobile, and it's less likely to get broken into. But those are the most common burglaries we see. Now the next one, number 5, is robbery. And robbery is very interesting because people have turned simple misdemeanor thefts into a robbery simply by resisting to get away. In other words, we've had several cases where a person is suspected of shoplifting. Loss prevention attempts to get them at the exit of the whatever store it is, and instead of complying and going with loss prevention, they will push them, hit them, any number of things to try and get away from that misdemeanor theft. That effort just made it a robbery. So the easiest way to think of it is robbery is committing a theft but then using force in the commission of that theft, and now you're charged with a robbery. Now, here in my office, we don't see a whole lot of plain robbery cases. We do see, we do have aggravated robberies, which is, you've introduced now a deadly weapon to commit the theft. So that an aggravated robbery is just what you think of. It's pulling a gun on someone and taking their purse. That's aggravated robbery. And we do have a lot of those cases. Well, not a lot, but we have more aggravated robbery cases in my office than we do just plain robbery. But again, I literally just Googled top 5 crimes in Texas, and these are the 5 that came up. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about that today and see if anyone had any questions about that. Shane, people do fight with knives. They do. Doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. Let me see. Shorty didn't send me any questions for today. He's always on here. I see Mom watching. You're not late, Mom. I was late. I started late. So anyway, that's all I got there on the top 5 most common crimes in Texas. Somebody asked me to comment on how do I defend them, and we go back to the same thing again. Every case and every set of facts is different, so there's not a set way I can say that I defend any one case. In drug cases, there's a lengthy analysis. How were the drugs discovered? Where were the drugs? Did the officers have probable cause to commence with a search? There's just so many things that we have to go through, including laboratory testing on the drugs. It's just not an easy answer to say this is how I defend drug cases, because no 2 drug cases are alike. If the stop or the encounter with the accused begins with an automobile, then I have to look at, was the stop of the automobile lawful? If I determine that it was, then the next step is, did the officer have any reason to detain the person beyond the reasonable amount of time that it should have taken to deal with the traffic offense? So in other words, if it's for turning without your blinker, what can the officer say to articulate a legal sufficiency to further detain you beyond just writing you a ticket for failing to use your signal on the turn? And if he cannot, then I might be able to win that case. So there's so much that goes into an analysis. Renee, I see you on here, and as I was preparing to do today's live, I thought of a good idea that I might like to, on my lives, tell war stories that I had with Rico, many of which you've heard many times at the ranch when we were hunting every season. But it would be a fun way for me to memorialize some of the cases that I had with Rico. And it was, they're interesting stories, or at least Rico and I thought they were. Theft cases are often not dealt with in the same way either. It would depend on the nature of the theft. I have a theft case right now, which was actually a trailer that my client is alleged to have stolen, but the video quality is extremely poor, and at least from my perspective, I believe it's impossible to identify who the person on the video is. So that case is still pending. I don't know where we'll get with that eventually, but without something more solid, I don't know that the government or the state is going to get to it on that trailer theft, simply because I can't identify the person on the video. So now, believe me, I have other cases where the businesses that are stolen from have cameras that make me go, wow. I mean, their ability to zoom in on a person, their ability to get the details, the ability to pan the cameras. I mean, some businesses invest real money in their cameras, and in those cases, they're much harder to defend. So in defending a theft case, obviously, we look at what the evidence is, and then figure out the best way to go forward. Aggravated assault, again, it's so, they're so different, especially because now you're going to have what the state is going to believe is a victim. There could be self-defense issues. What is the history of the parties? What led to the event that resulted in someone being charged with aggravated assault? Are there family issues? Were there drugs or alcohol involved? There's just so much that we have to look at in each case of aggravated assault to determine, again, what that person's best way forward is. And the burglary and robbery are the same. Burglaries, sort of, you're starting to see a lot more of people with cameras at their house. And I think that most of that is due to the invention of the Ring camera, catching people getting into people's vehicles. And that's kind of the same situation. And this may be unique to Galveston County social media, but a lot of people will catch something on their Ring doorbell or camera system, and obviously they alert the police, but then they also put it on social media, trying to identify the person that was getting into their car in the middle of the night. And so that's kind of an interesting twist, and we have to again look at the video quality to determine whether or not someone can be identified. I did have a case a while back where the defendant had a pantyhose over his head, but the person's camera system was so good that you could still tell that it was my client, even though he had the pantyhose all the way down to his neck. But unfortunately, the victim had a camera system that was that good. And so, again, and whether or not you've seen people post on social media or not, I've seen a lot of them, and there's a lot of them that the camera systems are just so poor that you can't identify a face to be able to see who someone is. Another funny thing about the cameras, and this has happened, is that sometimes when you can't identify the face, you can identify tattoos. That has happened. I have another case right now where my client is accused of stealing something, and that house had video as well, and the video is such that there's no way it could have been my client. We're talking about a difference between the person on the camera and my client probably being close to 200 pounds different. So in that case, the video helps me to show that it's not my client accused of that theft. But like I said, every case is different. So hey, Paula, I see you on there. All right, well, that's about all I got for today. People saying hi, but I don't have any questions to answer. So I will see y'all next Tuesday. Y'all have a good rest of your week.